District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Judge Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court, Paul C. Metzler and James Milley Jr. in Pennsylvania Court. My name is Chris Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law. It will arrive in your offices tomorrow. It's dated this January 3rd, 2023. When I say it's going to arrive at your offices tomorrow, because here's the UPS, and this tracks it right here. Do you understand what I'm saying to you here? That I'm sending you the Freedom of Information Law. There are 65 that I'm going to read. I'm demanding information from you. And your entire nauseating, repulsive, sick, corrupt existence is tax dollars. And you will refuse to comply with all 65. So this is going to James Milley Jr., 1985 Bad Road, Penfield, New York. Do you think you're in a courtroom, James Milley Jr.? Because there's no jury of 12. There's no witness box for testimony. There's no table for a prosecutor. There's no table for a defense attorney and defendant. What kind of psychotic 1984 do you live in, James Milley Jr.? Do you think you're in a courtroom? Paul C. Metzler? What kind of psychotic 1984 do you live in if you think you're in a courtroom? Alex Renzi, 99 Exchange Boulevard, he's in a courtroom. This approximately 70-year-old hack who's paid $208,000. What he's doing to me, just what Paul C. Metzler and John P. Lomenzo Jr. did. I'm just being declared guilty when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court. A prosecutor has never talked in court for me, and I've been in jail 6 times. How does that happen once to any citizen? I'm not just any citizen because I acquired your payroll and I read it on YouTube and I've done other things to your office on YouTube, Todd Baxter. That enrages your employees and it enrages you. You, Todd Baxter, don't look like you're a human being that can be enraged. You have rage inside you. There's no doubt about that. You just don't project it. And you don't even know this about yourself. Alex Renzi and Todd K. Baxter. You're getting it here at 130 South Plymouth Avenue. Sandra Doorley's getting it at 47 South Fitzhugh. Mark Phillips. Mark, thank you for your representation of me, Montgomery County Public Defender. And Regina Harper, thank you for your representation of me at the Montgomery County Public Defender. So, this is coming, it's tracked, and you're going to refuse to comply with every single one because you're corrupt and you're amoral. This is the definition of amoral. Unconcerned with the rightness or wrongness of something. That's you. The something is justice. I have to search for new words to describe Psychopaths Incorporated, which is all the names I mentioned, and your subordinates. And I don't think I've used amoral. I don't know. Because I'm running out of words to describe Psychopaths Incorporated. This is what's left of my life. I don't know if you can see that with the glare on the phone. That's my loft, bedroom, closet to walk in. And that's what I have left. Because my ex-girlfriend, when I was locked out of my residence by my 2 psychopath father-son landlords, Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano. Giuseppe Spano is now dead at 47 years old. That's what I have left. And my ex-girlfriend took everything I own, Laura Riley, to a storage locker in Webster. My sister refused to pay for it. And everything I own is gone. I don't have my dress greens from the 101st Airborne Division. I have to try to keep it together when I think about that. I was in the 17th Cavalry in the 101st, and one day a month for payday, it was the first of the month, it would be the dress greens. And we'd go out there, and soldiers got promoted, and soldiers received awards, and I was on a color guard. So I'd go from the color guard, which is how it was on, and since I was in what's called S1, it's 75 Bravo, I had to stand next to the colonel as he promoted individuals and gave individuals awards, and this was a thrill at 21 years old. So I don't have my dress greens. When I'm 85, I remember looking at the stripes on my dress greens and as a young man, thinking I'll have this for the rest of my life. Well, I was wrong. And I'm nothing special as a veteran. And I have nothing but contempt for individuals that are veterans and expect praise for it. Because tens of millions of men and women are veterans. And I didn't see any combat. The praise for veterans is those that have seen combat, especially in Gulf War I, and what has happened since in the last 30 years. And in the 20 plus years since September 11, 2001. I didn't see any combat. I was in during peacetime. I did my time. I got out. But I would look at my dress screens and my AAM, my ARCOM, my air assault badge, and I would love thinking about the guys I was there with. I can't do that anymore. I'll never see my uniform again. And when I filed a criminal claim about the father who is still alive, you're not going to do a goddamn thing with Antonino Spano of Webster, New York, who I believe did this to me, because it could be the dead son, but I'm going to contact him and copy you. So the trash bags of my life, that's what I have left. Because you, Todd, Baxter, Sandra, Doorley. I have those trash bags. I'm showing you those trash bags because those are your trash bags. And Todd Baxter, when I use the phrase surveillance device, again, I don't know if you can see the glare with the phone, but I've included the photograph, but that's it. Perhaps if I hold it away, that's at 2025 Penfield Road. Todd Baxter, is this not a surveillance device? Because when I was calling it a surveillance device, your fellow psychopaths like Michael Rather, Kathleen Miller, William Tadeo, or Scott Alberti were calling Lindsay Barron in Amoral County Office of Mental Health to come to my residence. Regina Harper sent me the links, and I originally first saw myself on this contraption. County Sheriff Office employees. And I have email after email from my mail.com account, because this has an assigned number called an ICN number. At least that's what I was told. Where's the original video image of it? Are you going to tell the United States Department of Justice, Todd Baxter, that this is not a surveillance device? Are you going to tell the United States Department of Justice that I wasn't on this surveillance device? Are you going to tell the United States Department of Justice, Todd Baxter, you don't know what I'm talking about? Go that route. You know why? Because you're a liar and you're drenched in lies. Think about the best lie. So, now, what I'm going to read to you is coming UPS, and these are the UPS receipts I've already received. So everything I'm going to read, I didn't write a new one. Every single foil you've already received. And not only via UPS, there are different ways to do it. I just prefer UPS now because it's less money, and I'm going to get the money momentarily. These are receipts here. This is coming. Everything I'm going to read, you got here. The green card comes back to me. That's the return receipt. So, now when I say life is about money, as far as what I'm doing to you, this is today's January 3rd. This is Patrick Printing. I love these guys down there. They laugh when I come in there. Here he is again. Isn't that $100 for us? Because today, $99.30 I paid today for this foil. And this is on this January 3rd, so it's $99.30. $110.80 on December 28th. Then on December 27th, $103.94. December 22nd, $108.42. December 20th, $80.15. December 16th, $79.57. December 8th, $58.86. December 14th, $44.60. December 6th, $35.42. And the 2nd is $20. The 19th is $15. The 20th is $14. The 5th is $7. The 29th is $24. The 1st is $13.50. The 12th is $9.72. And I'm back to $99.30. So this is money I'm spending. You haven't complied with anything. You're not going to comply with every single foil that you're going to receive, all 65, because you're corrupt. That's why. If I look up like I just did, I have to see if the Wi-Fi is on because something wacky's happened with my Wi-Fi. So, and when I email you, Psychopaths Incorporated, the foil that I'm going to read, this is also what you're going to receive via UPS. And here is Psychopaths Incorporated. This is December 26th. Here's all your names and emails up here, including the civilians. How often do you skinhead, stooge, and party switcher Todd Baxter use civilians in law enforcement operations? Ellie Roth of Consumer Insights 2025 Penfield Road. Steve Desmond of Broccola Tree and Lawn Care. Both of them are involved in this with me. Isn't that right, Elliot? Sign for your registered mail return receipt. I have not sent you anything, but I will. This Steve Desmond has signed for documentation for me, where I said to him, $67,000 Shannon Meyer told you to ride your tractor by the residence of Christopher Child's 26 Sands Farm Drive, and then Desmond's going to call Meyer if I come out outside the residence to arrest him. The problem is, you skinhead, stooge, you party switcher, you Benito Mussolini clone, Todd K. Baxter, for me to walk outside and tell Steve Devs and Brock Colo Tree and Lawn Care nobody owns the land next to my residence and walk back in my residence, that's not a crime. You Benito Mussolini skinhead Todd Baxter. You will have to say it's a crime or fire Shannon Meyer. What is it? Think about the best possible lie. You are drenched in lies and hatred and corruption, and so are your employees at that revolting Monroe County Sheriff's Office. So here, everything I'm going to read you received on December 26th. Everything I'm going to read you received on December 22nd. Everything I'm going to read you received on December 18th. Everything I'm going to read you received on November 28th. And I think that's the end of it. It is. But you received it for 18 months. These are just the ones I'm going to hold up here. So what's the problem in Jonestown? The law's a joke to you. When I ask a question, there are questions that are just rhetorical, and then there are questions that definitely have an answer. The law is a joke to you. The law is for other people. I'm going to read these foils. You're not going to comply with any one, and this is the price of violence. What's Siemens' first name? When I obtain the payroll, I write a criminal complaint against him about him. You know who I'm talking about? Because I've talked about him repeatedly. I walked in Penfield Public Library. Your fellow psychopath, Todd K. Baxter, Siemens, followed me in there with another Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee. I don't know I have $61.39 in my pocket. Siemens runs at me, holds his arm out like this, clotheslines me. I fall down. My head slams against the ceramic tile of the library floor. The other psychopath with Siemens kicked me when I was down on the floor. They put the handcuffs on me, frog marched me out of the library, down the hall, and there's Paul C. Metzler's $28,000 bald-headed widows waiting for me to declare me guilty, and then I'm driven to Livingston County Jail in Geneseo, even though I live in Monroe County. Why is that, Todd Baxter? If you're asked by the Department of Justice, why is a citizen in your county, Monroe County, in jail, in Livingston County Jail, when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court? What's your answer, Todd Baxter? You will have to come up with an answer, and you will have to lie. Are you just going to remain silent? When I contact the United States Department of Justice and Sheriff Thomas J. Doorley of Livingston County and say, what am I doing there? Now, I'm told by a Livingston County employee, you would not be safe. Those are her exact words to me. And she knew things about my case and what was happening. She saw me on YouTube. So, I now know about the professionalism of jails. Because the jail, Livingston County, they did treat you with a degree of dignity. That's not the case in Monroe County Jail. You're just a scout, you're there, and they're really completely indifferent to who you are as a human being in Monroe County Jail. So, this is what I had in my pocket. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to send this to you. Did you fire Siemens, Todd Baxter? The answer is no. Because you're the blue wall of silence. And you want a violent psychopath like Siemens, who follows me into a library and attacks me, to be around your skinhead. Siemens and Paul C. Metzler decided I'm in Livingston County Jail in Geneseo. When I was a graduate student in SUNY Albany, my friend Anthony Scardino, who was also a graduate student, he went to SUNY Geneseo. And we would talk about that because I went to SUNY Stony Brook. And I emailed him. And I didn't tell him anything would happen to me. And I said to him, I didn't know that Livingston County was one of the 62 counties in New York because I was recently there. And he laughed because he knew exactly what I was talking about. So here I am in this county full of rednecks in Livingston County because of two people, Paul C. Metzler and Siemens. Christopher, what are you talking about? You just walked outside and told a man on his tractor that nobody owns the land next to where you live, and 6 Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees, 6 cops showed up, and you were arrested just for telling a man on his tractor that nobody owns the land next to your residence. And Christopher, you went to a gym and you're on the bench press and a man stood over you and punched down, your head snapped back, and then you went out to the vehicle and the police officer told the man who attacked you to say he wanted to press charges against you, and that's you're charged with harassment second sitting in the backseat of the police vehicle. Christopher, you left your residence at midnight and walked alongside the sign of your residence, and 2 police officers came running at you, and you never stopped running, ran up your back porch, and they claim that you swung a hammer at them. And what are they doing on your neighbor's private property? And who did you assault? I don't get it. You know why I'm using that language? Because that's exactly the way my mother was talking to me. This is what happened with these 3 concoctions from you, Todd Baxter. I'm walking through the parking lot for the 4,000th time, and a man named Nayron Shah begins to scream at me. What do you think about a 50-year-old man who lives with a 70-year-old mother? Because that's him. And I'm going to write a criminal complaint about him for falsely reporting an incident. It's not a crime for me to walk through this parking lot. And that's when $67,000 cop from hell, Sandra Meyer, calls me. She talks like a freak. Do you walk through the parking lot? I said, yeah, just like my neighbors. How long have you lived in Penfield? I said, since 2012. Do you know Nehran Shah? No. It's question after question like this from her, where I'm holding the phone away from my ear. So I walked outside. I told Steve Devon and Brock Tree in lawn care. Nobody owns the land next to my residence. I walked back inside. That's not a crime. It's not a crime when Jermaine Beman attacks me and my mother's saying to me over and over, who did you harass? Don Benedetto and Houlihan waited on the private property of my neighbor. And then Michelle Crowley convened the grand jury for me, where I don't know the grand jury's convened. Isn't that right, Michelle Crowley? Well, Houlihan stated to the grand jury in an act of perjury that I swung a hammer at him. Do you know what I'm talking about, Michelle Crowley? I've not written any foil that demands you send me the transcript to the grand jury. What's life going to be like for you, Michelle Crowley, if you say that there's no transcript? Or if there is a transcript, you just won't refuse to provide it to me? What's the answer, Michelle Crowley? I've written you, I've been on YouTube about you, and there's nothing from you. You know when you can contact me, Michelle Crowley, about the grand jury that indicts me as your personal ham sandwich when I don't know what's convened? It's right here. 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. And on this email is my name and address where you can contact me. 65 Freedom of Information Law documents, and you're going to refuse to comply with every one because you're amoral. And amoral is an unconcerned with the rightness or wrongness of something. That's you, Todd Baxter. That's you, Sandra Doorley. That's you, Paul C. Metzer. That's you, James Family Jr. That's Alex Renzi. That's certainly you, Michelle Crowley. So, you're showing up to my residence to man my dog. Do you know what I'm talking about, Todd Baxter? Because I was on YouTube and I called it, I think, the dog snatcher of Monroe County. Do you not know the love that citizens have for the dogs, every single one? Todd Baxter answers you don't, because it's Jonestown Kool-Aid drinking. A Jonestown Kool-Aid drinker is someone who's divorced from the truth. And that's you. Showing up to my residence to man my dog. The reason why I'm showing this again, I'm not going to talk about it because it really exhausts me. It takes too much out of me. Is on top of these documents that you're going to receive on this January 3rd, is this photograph. I don't know if you watch me, I'll never know. But this document photograph is placed on top of it. So in my illegal eviction, I've said this before, New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Vital Records, Certification Unit, P.O. Box 2602, Albany, New York, 12220. I had to write to the New York State Department of Health to get my birth certificate. When I worked in Albany, my friend John Signer was the official spokesman of the Department of Health. This is when I worked for the Majority Leader and Governor. And I used to go over to see John at the Department of Health. A friend anybody want to have. I never thought that I'd be writing his Department of Health for my birth certificate because of you, Todd Baxter, and Sandra Doorley. So, you were such a joke and a buffoon. I'm walking into Gold's Gym in Fairport, and here comes your Monroe County Sheriff Office employee right at me. I thought at first, here they are again for me. And it was going to be another double jeopardy situation for me. You even know what I'm talking about, a double jeopardy? You party switching frauds, Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. Perhaps I will talk about that. I don't know yet. But I'm walking into Gold's Gym in Fairport, and here he comes driving right by me. And I wasn't surprised. You know why, Todd Baxter? They're alongside the building at 2157 Penfield Road. What are you fellow psychopaths doing alongside Wegmans day after day after day and week after week? I've said this repeatedly to you on this Google product that is YouTube. And since I no longer live in Penfield, I can never take a picture like this again. This is the buffoonery and the corruption of your office. Every single day would be. I would see them because I could see them when I go to Wegmans, when I go to Gold's Gym, when I would go to Cam's Pizza. There were some times where I'd walk by that Wegmans 5-6 times a day, depending on where I was going. And they would be there all the time. This is why you're a buffoon, stooge, and skinhead. It's a private business. You buffoon, stooge, and skinhead. Tell your employees to do their jobs. And that includes writing speeding tickets, which is where they should be on Penfield Road, not alongside Wegmans when they're 100 yards away from Penfield Road. So, this disgusting little room. I haven't opened this yet. This is supposed to be a list of defendants from Paul C. Metzler. I don't know how that qualifies. I'm going to write this in a different way, Paul C. Metzler. Well, I'm going to demand a list of defendants from the last 5 years. This is definitely not the last 5 years. And is this the last 12 months? What's this going to look like? Is my name going to be on here? I'll also know if this is accurate because my neighbor had to appear before John P. Lomenzo Jr. I'm not going to say his name. I have known him nearly the whole time I was in Penfield. He hates John P. Lomenzo Jr. with such intensity. He uses a word to describe him that I agree with, that I will not use on here. It is what I believe the most vile word that you can use, the most profane word. Do you know why Todd Baxter, Sandra, Doorley, Paul C. Metzler, James Renzi Jr., and Alex Renzi? He's just being declared guilty. Where a prosecutor didn't talk to court. Where, of course, there is no jury. There's no witness box for testimony. And when he's telling me about his experience in this star chamber, I'm sitting there listening to him go on minute after minute. And a lot of what happened to him is nearly identical to me as far as the courtroom, where it does not matter that he's an innocent citizen. And guilt or innocence is totally irrelevant. And his future and his life is in the hands of John P. Lomenzo Jr. This is a fanaticism, a corruption, a hatred, a malevolence, this little room that I never thought that I would experience in my life. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law. The contract signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase firearms from Amoral County Sheriff's Office employees to include 1, the name of the firearms contractor, the number of firearms purchased, the total amount taxpayer dollars expended to purchase firearms. This can remove you from office. When I contact the controller of the state of New York, Thomas P. DiNapoli, and tell him I've been now reading this repeatedly. And I've been saying when I read it, I know you're not going to comply. Because this is corruption in contracting. When I would read the work of the Heritage Foundation in the 1980s, they had a book called Mandate for Leadership, which is about 500 pages. And they had sections on it on federal contracting and corruption in contracting. Is this corruption in contracting? I don't know. The weapons are not sent to you for free, Todd Baxter. Are you aware of that fact? How many weapons do you have? Because it's not just the handguns. You have rifles too. What are the types of weapons? That's what I'm going to get to next about you. And you'll refuse to answer that. Do you think you don't have to provide the citizens of Amoral County with a description of every weapon you have when that weapon can be used on an innocent citizen? Todd Baxter? The city of Rochester police are murdering innocent citizens in the street, like Daniel Prude. So, Todd Baxter, since a citizen can be murdered in the street without a weapon in his case, it's easier to murder someone with the official weapon of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And what types of weapons do you have? And how many weapons do you have? And you refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. Contract signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley to purchase 1, an automobile and automobiles, 2, a driver, a chauffeur for District Attorney Sandra Doorley office supplies. Office supplies is innocuous. Isn't that right? Deputy District Attorney Perry Duckles, who is, I believe, the de facto District Attorney in Monroe County. Again, corruption in contracting. Who's your contractor for office supplies at the District Attorney's office? And what you're thinking there at your little shack is, who is this citizen to ask us about this? Because I'm trying to determine if there's corruption in contracting with your District Attorney's office. There are connections, personal, in Monroe County, where your contractor for your office supplies, it's a who you know thing. I'm sure you're well aware of the fact that life is about who you know. So how do you get your office supplies? Who is the contractor for your office supplies? This is general. I didn't write it yet in a specific way. I will, and you will still refuse. You party-switching diva, Sandra Doorley, because you're corrupt. Automobile and automobiles. Do you drive yourself into the office? I'm going to try not to laugh. There are times where I try not to laugh because there's nothing funny about the obliteration of my life by corrupt cops, which began, and silent prosecutors never talked in court. Do you drive into the office? I believe, this is what I believe. And you tell me if I'm wrong. I don't have the arrogance that I'm right about everything. I believe, Sandra Doorley, that when you open the door to leave your residence at Webster, that there's the vehicle right there, and you get in the passenger seat and you're driven into the district attorney's office and you have a chauffeur. Am I right or am I wrong? You know the answer, Perry Douglas, and so do every one of you hacks at the district attorney's office. My boss, Governor George Pataki, got to the Capitol. There's a ramp. Capitol's on the second floor. You knew he was there immediately because the state police would be talking to each other. He'd get off the elevator. I was right there in the press office. I'd see him get off the elevator. You knew he was coming, and you knew he was coming when he was 5 minutes away because the staff would be talking about it. He's coming. He's going to be here in 5 minutes. Because there are times where employees will be talking to each other and socializing, and that's not going to be happening if the boss is coming, especially a boss like him. So anyway, I'm trying to be a narcissist when I'm on here, but I'm talking about my experience. He had a driver because of who he was. And it's understandable that he has a driver, just like the majority leader did and the speaker had. You're not the governor of New York. You're not the majority leader or the speaker. You're just an idiot sheriff. You're just an idiot district attorney. So does the idiot district attorney have a driver, have a chauffeur? What's the answer, you idiot district attorney? Freedom of Information Law. Documentation assignment $28,000 Paul C. Metzer, Pembroke Town Court. That is a search warrant to allow $91,000 Lee LaRoque of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to enter 26 Sanders from driving Pembroke, New York for the confiscation of the Acer Chromebook owned by Christopher Chichester residents. Lee LaRoque, you 40-plus pounds overweight fat girl. When you looked at my Chromebook, why did you remove it from my residence? What's the probable cause, Paul C. Metzler, for you to write a search warrant or concoct a search warrant for this confiscation of my Chromebook? You're sitting there at 1985 Bad Road, you skinhead widow, thinking I want his Chromebook at 26 Sanders Farm Drive? How is that explained, Paul C. Metzler? When I say how's that explained, what's the probable cause for it, Paul C. Metzler? And where's my Chromebook now, Sheriff Todd Baxter? Because you have it. You went through the hard drive of my Chromebook. You're trying to concoct a crime from me, looking at the hard drive, my Chromebook, and you're reading my emails. You had to. Because what's the purpose of having my Chromebook in your possession, Todd Baxter? I had a friend, back to my experience in Albany, who was driving down Washington Avenue, and he got a DWI. And I was at my residence in the Albany suburb of Guilderland, and the phone rang, and another friend was on the phone. He stated this friend's name. He said he got picked up. I knew exactly what he was talking about. And his DWI went away. This is a long time ago in Albany, and I was a young man. It vanished. No court appearance, no DWI. The only people who knew about it were me, my friend that got the DWI, my friend that called me, and I think a few other people. Because he was connected to the city of Albany. It's the way the world works. I'm not naive about that. And I think that's exactly what happens in Monroe County. If one of your employees gets a DWI, they can make it go away. Are you aware, Todd Baxter, of any driving while intoxicated incidents with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Because the difference between an arrest, which is part of public record, and an incident where it just vanishes. But you're aware of what happens with your employees. Do you understand the distinction here, the difference here, Todd Baxter? There's the DWI, that's the arrest, it's public record. And then there is the driving while intoxicated situation that vanishes. Do you know what I'm talking about here, Todd Baxter? In your 30 eternal years in law enforcement, has anybody you ever served with in the sheriff's office in Greece, a uniform officer of the law, been in a situation that I just described by driving while intoxicated, where they were driving while intoxicated, and there's no court appearance, there's no arrest, and it vanished? What's the answer, Todd Baxter? Hide behind that blue wall silence. Hide behind that Donna Karan of silence, Sandra Doorley. The number of employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, arrested for driving while intoxicated. So we get past this ridiculous media and never ask you a question like this. I just asked you this question. Answer it. The number of employees at New York State Supreme Court, 99 Exchange Boulevard, Rochester, New York, arrested for driving while intoxicated. This is Alex Renzi. It's only for one person because at the Magistrates Association, he absolutely was intoxicated. I've been saying previously he may have been liquored up. He had to be drunk. And I said to him when I was in New York State Supreme Court, are you an alcoholic, Alex? I hope he looks at this and he's in a rage. Is he talking about me? Because I'm the only one here that he could be referring to. And this went to the United States Attorney's Office too. Trinity Ross. I hope Trinity Ross looks at that and thinks, we should look into this Alex Renzi on New York State Supreme Court and see if he has anything in his background. Because it's immoral and unethical for him to be on New York State Supreme Court if he has a DWI. Just like you, Paul C. Messer and James McNally Jr. So what's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. The number of employees at Penford Town Court, 195 Bedrock, Penford, New York, arrested for driving while intoxicated. You cannot be on Penford Town Court if you have DWI. You have to resign. Total number of sick days used by Sheriff Todd Baxter from January 1, 2022 to January 3rd, 2023. So that's a 1 year period. 1 year went by, Todd Baxter, 2022. How many times you call in sick or how many times you miss work because you were sick? And what you're thinking is you don't have to answer because you're not accountable to anyone. Just like a certain district attorney doesn't have to answer. Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days used by District Attorney Sandra Doorley from January 1, 2022 to January 3, 2023. Pardon me. You, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, use your health for political points, which I've said repeatedly, it's a disgrace. Shut up about your health. Because when you talk about your health, you're trying to generate political points, sympathy with the voters, the people of Monroe County. If, in fact, you have 30 plus sick days, 60 plus sick days, you cannot remain as district attorney. You'll have to resign. Do you agree with what I just said, Perry Duckles? If the district attorney in Monroe County is 30 plus sick days, 60 plus sick days, can she still remain in office? I'll write you directly about it. Freedom of Information Law. This is the nepotism foil. There's the number of minors on payroll, the number of minors related to sheriff office, district attorney's office employees. I know you're not going to answer. I'll tell Thomas B. DiNapoli, I've been demanding this. I think it's the 5th or 6th time I've written this language. Are you going to tell Thomas B. DiNapoli, the duly elected patrol of the state of New York, in the Alfred E. Smith building in Albany, that you refuse? And the answer is yes. Nepotism enrages voters because it's so simple to understand. And given the fact that it's so simple to understand, this is the type of corruption that enrages people. And I'm trying to enrage you as psychopaths incorporated by demanding this information. Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public employee payroll, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. The last page of the payroll, your $10,000, $20,000 employees, I believe that they are minors, including Camille Miller. The number of minors on the public employee payroll, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, who are related to Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees. You understand what I'm saying? There's the number of minors, and then there's nepotism minors. The number of minors on the public employee payroll, the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. I mean, do you have a 17-year-old in there who wants to be a junior district attorney? That's a good thing. I don't think that that's unethical. You have a high school student who wants to be an intern. I did internships when I was a teenager. But disclose it. That's what I'm saying. What's the answer, Sandra Doorley? The number of minors on the public employee payroll, the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, who are related to Monroe County District Attorney's Office employees. What's not a good thing is you have the minors on the payroll, and it's just because of nepotism. And it's not just a minor who contacts the district attorney's office, perhaps a 17-year-old, wants to go to law school, wants to learn about the law. That's always terrific. And doesn't know anybody. They have minors where every single minor on the payroll is related to a district attorney's office employee. What's the answer, Sandra Doorley? And just existing that stone cold silence of corruption. And corruption is a conviction integrity union. You had to form a separate bureaucracy within the district attorney's office to police yourself because you're corrupt. Sandra Doorley. What does Sandra Doorley's contraption do? Two foils regarding this. You refuse because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley created a, quote, conviction integrity union and crew, quote, within the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Why do you need that thing? Does it meet? Because there's public meetings law too. If it meets and has met, then you're subject to the public meetings law. I will usually fall upon you if I know it's met in public. Or if I know it's met and it's not public, I'll use the Freedom of Information Law. Freedom of Information Law. The minutes of every conviction integrity unit, end quote, meeting at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office is Trace Sandra Doorley. If this contraption hasn't met, then this is irrelevant. Hasn't met, one, and two, if it has, are the minutes. And you refuse to answer because you are the stone cold silence of corruption. Freedom of Information Law. To cost the taxpayers for production of, quote, Behind the Badge with MCSO, end quote, podcast with Sheriff Todd Baxter, the classes intend to be as, quote, transparent as possible, and that's a lie. This is transparency right here. Every single one of these foils, all 65 is transparency, and you're going to refuse to comply with every single one. Compensatory time is, in Albany, you have the standard 40-hour work week. Every hour beyond the 40th hour begins to accumulate. So if you work 3 weeks in a row, 41 hours, 60 hours, that's 60 hours of compensatory time, 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, and it builds up. It can build up to 500 hours, 750 hours, 1,000 hours. Do you have compensatory time at the sheriff's office, the attorney's office? Freedom of information law. The Sheriff Todd K. Baxter allowed compensatory time to employees that have work time beyond the standard 40-hour work week. That's not called vacation time, end quote, where the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office employee is paid. Freedom of information law. The District Attorney, Sandra Doorley, will allow compensatory time to employees that have worked beyond the standard 40-hour work week. That is, quote, not vacation time, where the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office employee is paid. Financial disclosure. Have not yet been able to find out the specific part of state or federal law for your financial disclosure. This can remove you from office, depending on what your finances are. Send me a financial disclosure. And you know you can refuse because I'm not citing the exact part of state law or federal law for it. That's why you corrupt Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information law, the personal financial disclosure of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Freedom of information law, the personal financial disclosure of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information law, the personal financial disclosure of Supervising Judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex Renzi. Freedom of information law, the personal financial disclosure of Penfield Town Court Judge Paul C. Metzler. Freedom of information law, the personal financial disclosure of Penfield Town Court Judge James Milley Jr. What's not to understand? How do you discipline your employees? Todd Baxter is a veteran, an E8, Master Sergeant. You know about the Article 15, you know about the courts martial, and since you are a veteran, and you know about the Article 15, the courts martial, how do you discipline your employees? What's the disciplinary process? Especially when your fellow psychopaths attack innocent citizens like Siemens did to me at the Penfield Public Library and like your other psychopath did to me at the pharmacy entrance to Wegmans, where your female employee with the Marine-style haircut and tattoos watched your employee run at me, knock me to the ground, my head slammed down on concrete pavement, you animal. Freedom of information law. The internal disciplinary record documentation of employees of the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and Sheriff Todd K. Baxter reprimanded, terminated, disciplined in employment at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office. What's the answer? The answer is you don't have any disciplinary process. Freedom of information law. The internal disciplinary record documentation for employees of the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, District Attorney Sandra Doorley is reprimanded, terminated, disciplined employment at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office. You don't have any disciplinary process. Your employees can exist in silence as defendants are sent to jail. It does not matter to you, Sandra Doorley. Is justice blind, Sandra Doorley? Is justice blind for me? The answer is no. The name and salary of every public employee at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, I'll begin to write this in a 6-month period since January 2018. You'll still refuse. A list of every public employee at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office by one, length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. You refuse to answer this to me, I know, but I'm getting to the point where I'm going to contact Thomas B. Napoli. I'll say he's refusing. Length of employment leads to corruption. You have an employee, I believe, that's been in your jail for at least 40 years. And I believe you know who I'm talking about. Answer me, Todd Baxter. There's no accountability for you. Don't think you have to answer anybody. But when you demand answers from citizens in Monmouth County, you better receive those answers. Right, Todd Baxter? The hypocrisy of you is sickening. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley, sent to me, pathetic diva. Same thing with Todd Baxter about length of employment. Freedom of information law, list of every public employee at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office by one, length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Overtime. Time and a half. There are different ways to do it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This is general language. I can write this in a different way. I haven't decided yet. Overtime, time and a half. What happens beyond that 40th hour? Tell me the answer. Freedom of information law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, and I'll pay beyond base hours calculated to Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Pardon me. Freedom of information law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, or I'll pay beyond base hours calculated to Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. If you have your employees doubling their salaries at the Sheriff's Office and District Attorney's Office, and this is 50 employees, 60 employees, you cannot remain in office. You have to resign. Sick days, too. This can force your resignation. Freedom of information law. The total number of, quote, sick days and total number of hours employees at the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, have accumulated by one, the number of sick days and number of hours. How many times have you been sick this year, Todd Baxter, called in with sick day? How many times have you not been sick and called in with a sick day? Freedom of information law. Total number of sick days and total number of hours employees at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley have accumulated by one, the number of sick days and number of hours. How many sick days have you been in, Sandra Doorley, where you missed time at the office? How many times have you missed time at the office was not a sick day. Sandra Doorley. What's the answer? What do you think? He should be arrested. He's so obnoxious and rude. Look at the way he's talking to us here, pointing his finger at us. Freedom of Information Law. The number of sick days and total number of hours that supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court, accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. I hope he's in a rage when he looks at this. Just like these two hacks, these two fossils. Freedom of Information Law. Is there a wheelchair that gets you into Pempton Town Court, Paul C. Metzler? Is there a stretcher that gets you into Pempton Town Court, James P. Valley Jr.? You two would be perfect in the help by falling and can't get up commercial. Freedom of Information Law. The total number of sick days, total number of hours employees in Pempton Town Court accumulated by one, the number of sick days, the number of hours. This is sexual harassment. This is sexual harassment. District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office. The cost of taxpayers of Amoral County Sheriff Todd Baxter spending taxpayer dollars on employee-related discrimination lawsuits, Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. What's the answer? You know the answer, Kathleen Miller. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Amoral County District Attorney Sandra spending expended taxpayer dollars on employment-related discrimination lawsuits, fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What's the answer? You know the answer, Michelle Crowley, director of the grand jury. This is new. I just started to write this. I'm going to go over to East Avenue with this 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee because if you decide to comply with the law and disclose the names of my prosecutors' silence, I'll begin this process to disbar each. I'll also begin the process to disbar you, Sandra, because I already know your name. Freedom of Information Law. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys, employees at the Amoral County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, with the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. I'm going to have grievances before that Attorney Grievance Committee that are going to be 1,000 pages, including this just sentence, whole foil to that. How do employees qualify with the weapon, Todd Baxter? When you want to hyperventilate before the media, one of the things that you did is call the Democratic Chronicle and ask them to come cover you about how you qualify with your weapon. So what's the specific qualifications of it? And you don't think you have to answer. You just want to show up like you're Rambo and point your gun at a target and have the media take pictures of you and talk about how you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you don't have to answer any questions. How is it to qualify? And do you take a weapon away from an employee that can't qualify? Because I saw that at the 17th Cavalry. I had a guy who was a ranger, a true warrior, say to me, look at another soldier when I was at the 17th Cavalry. His exact words to me were that weapon should be taken away from him. What is the basic membership requirement for employees at the Amoral County Sheriff's Office? Sheriff Todd Baxter. This is the $0 freak. No money. You pay private money to go into the sheriff's office, Michael Rather. And you've been there since the Nuremberg rally in January 2018. 5+ years, no money. I try not to laugh when I'm on here. You was such a joke and a buffoon. You were the perfect joke of the Amoral County Sheriff's Office, Michael Rather, at $0. Freedom of Information. A day and year, Amoral County Sheriff Todd Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career ended on January 2018 and sent the email and address listed below. Documentation signed by Sheriff Baxter to rehire Rather. If you decide to comply with the law, you skinhead stooge and party switcher, your signature on any documentation to rehire Michael Rather and bring number 23 out of retirement, where he's now number 45, is your confession that he's paid $0. This is the cost of fanaticism here. I'm going to see if I can find it on my phone. I've tried to hold it sometimes the glare on the phone. I cannot get to it and find it and look at it in the right way. And in the interest of time, I may just move on because I'm now at 43 minutes. But this is fanaticism and hatred that you were initially lying about, Todd Baxter. And Regina Harper showed me the images of me on a what? What did Regina Harper show me the images of, Todd Baxter? I mean, does it even have to be said by me? Do I have to use the words? Because I've been demanding this now for 18 months from you. And for 18 months, you're refusing to provide me with the answers I'm demanding about you and fanaticism and hatred and corruption. And I don't think I'm going to be able to find it scrolling on my phone here. I'm trying to, because what I'm looking for, Todd Baxter, is a surveillance device. It's your surveillance device that you purchased for 2025 Penfield Road because you're sick, you're a lunatic, you're a fanatic, and you're trying to concoct the crime from me and walk through a parking lot I've walked through 4,000 times. Am I New York's 4,000-time criminal, Todd Baxter, because here it is. Pardon me for taking that long, and if you're still with me, thank you. I don't know who watches me, but that's it. That's a surveillance device. And I was on it. Todd Baxter, is this private technology you're using, or did you buy it to fix it for me? And here you are, you buffoon, stooge, and criminal, with your 4 stars on uniform. I've said this to you before. I'll write this down. I have not put this in writing yet. Did you decide to put those 4 stars on your collar? Because your predecessor sheriff, I did not see 4 stars on him. Are you Douglas McCarthy there making up your own uniform? Freedom of information law. The cost of a surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Amoral County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter fixed to a building at 2025 Pemberton Road to monitor Christopher Child, 26 Sandra Farm Drive, walks to Park, Lennox to the building, and that's a lunatic fringe. Lunatic fringe is a photography session. The cost for a photography session to photograph 10 Amoral County Sheriff Office employees underwater in the pool. How do you explain this to Thomas B. DiNapoli? How's this explained to the people of Monroe County? That's not the best possible photograph we could have taken. Really, taking a picture of employees underwater in a pool, private event, I don't care about that. That was your answer to me when I first started doing this to you. Were taxpayer dollars expended? Yes or no? The cost for a hotel and plane ticket from Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia. You're tweeting about it in the interest of time. This is now 46 minutes. I didn't even get cut off here on my Wi-Fi. That's him in Atlanta. Joke. You don't even know. Your employees, you're telling people about it too. So you're going to the media, telling the media your employee's going to be out of Monroe County. So, what was the price tag? Freedom of information law. Documentation of voucher or other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase an airline ticket and hotel room from Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher, traveled to Atlanta, Georgia in February 3rd, 2019. You will tell Thomas B. DiNapoli and anybody else that asks you that you don't have to disclose an airline ticket for Ryan Fisher, you don't expose a hotel room, any other incidental cost, because you're corrupt, Todd K. Baxter. The cost for the care and feeding of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd Lola during a trip to Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. What was it, $500, $1,000? What's $5,000 to send Ryan Fisher to Atlanta, Georgia? Physical training standards. Your employees cannot pass the United States Army PT test that's presently constructed. Why is that, Todd Baxter? Because it's acceptable to you for your employees to be 20, 30, 40, and 50 pounds overweight, but they're placing their own lives at risk. Freedom of information law. What are the physical training standards and requirements of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, and if there's a standard requirement, it doesn't include running, push-ups, sit-ups. That's as basic as it gets. Tell your employees to be at a designated location Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Go for a 2-mile run. Take about 25, 30 minutes. Push-ups, sit-ups. The whole thing can be done in an hour. That guarantees minimum physical conditioning. So what's the state of violence in Monroe County Jail? I'm going to contact the Commission on Correction in Albany. I'm telling them I'm demanding this. I think it's the 10th time, 11th time, 12th time. I'm demanding this more than 10 times now. Freedom of information law. The number of criminal acts or criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge with a criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 22 to January 3rd, 2023, which is today. What's the state of violence in Monroe County Jail? I'm trying to determine if you have no control over your jail. That's what I'm trying to determine. You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Does Sheriff Todd, freedom of information law, does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to heavy arrest for the accountability, facts, and circumstances of the arrest? Unlike the previous 4, I don't know the answer. I know the answer to this one. I want you to tell me it's no. Freedom of information law. The name and charge of every inmate of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 2018 to January 3rd, 2023, which is today. Separate your violent inmates from the non-violent inmates. I've said this now 50 times to you skinhead, stupid party switchers. Separate them. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on race or gender? Are you confused? Because you're a Democrat. You know what the answer has to be because you're a Democrat, but you can't say it. Do you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, hire employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender? Are you confused? You know what the answer is, and you can't state the answer because you're a Democrat, and Democrats are obsessed about race and gender. Give me these names here. Tell me the names of my prosecutors assigned, you sick, disgusting, corrupt Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information law. The documentation for the case for Christopher Child where John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Pemberton Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Is this Julie Hahn? I'm going to contact her on Monroe County Court. I'm going to ask her directly. I'm going to send her this FOIL and this YouTube and transcript. The documentation for the case of Christopher Child for Paul C. Metz from Pemberton Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor? Quote, the prosecutor is not backing down. That's what Regina Harper of the Monroe County Public Defender's Office told me on the phone. the vengeance to the heart of this boy and Paul C. Metzer decided I should be in Livingston County Jail. How does it happen to any citizen? Two people decide that I'm going to be in jail. It's not even the county I live in. What's his name, Sandra, Doorley, so I can pursue his disbarment? Just like these two females. I believe these are females because there were two females standing behind me in my last appearance in New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi. Do I have one prosecutor? Do I have multiple prosecutors? What's the answer? Freedom of information. The documentation for the case for Christopher Childs, just New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi. What's the name of the prosecutor? Sandra Doorley. List of defendants in Pemberton Court before Paul C. Metzler. That's not a list of defendants, Paul C. Metzler. I haven't opened it yet, but I will, and I'm going to say I told you so. A list of defendants in Pemberton Court for James White Jr. List of defendants in Pemberton Court for John P. Lorenzo Jr. Send it to me for this retired fossil. Duke of New York, A number 1 here, Alex Renzi. He'll be in a rage when he reads this because he doesn't think he has to be accountable to anyone. When I contact the Commission on Judicial Conduct, he received this today. I'll tell the Commission he's refusing. Freedom of information. I'll list defendants in New York State Supreme Court for supervising Judge Alex Renzi's $208,000 salary. Penfield Town Court again, you know what I'm talking about with Daniel Glaus III, Paul C. Metzer, James Smalley Jr. Send this to me. Freedom of information law, the quote, defective documents, end quote, cited by John P. Lorenzo Jr., Democrat and Chronicle newspaper for the case of Daniel Glaus III. Travel, this could remove me from office. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Amoral County, New York State by employees of the Amoral County Sheriff's Office, Todd Baxter. This can remove from office, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Amoral County, New York State by employees of Amoral County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Penfield Court, cost of travel. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Amoral County, New York State by employees of Penfield Court, Paul C. Metzer, James Smalley Jr., John P. Lorenzo Jr. Freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Amoral County by supervising judge in New York State Supreme Court, Alex Renzi. And the final two, I believe. I think I have a few more. Todd, Baxter, and Watkins Glen. What are you doing in Watkins Glen? A joke, a disgrace. I think Thomas B. DiNapoli is going to look at this and think, what is the sheriff in Monroe County near Rochester, New York doing with taxpayer dollars? The sheriff in Monroe County in Rochester, New York is doing is fleecing taxpayers. The cost of freedom of information law. The cost of trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd Baxter. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office spent tax dollars for a hotel, plane ticket premium. What's the answer, you skinhead stooge party switcher? The total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd Baxter on his trip to Watkins Glen, New York. You got to be talking about this, thinking about how you want to have a good time in Watkins Glen, divorce from what's happening on the violent streets of Rochester, New York, especially on Avenue D. Have you ever been out to Avenue D, Todd Baxter? You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever walked on Avenue D? Freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers, District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended Saratoga Springs, New York, the District Attorney Association of State of New York Summer Conference. That's the answer, you pathetic diva. You going on junkets? Freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers, Saratoga Springs, New York, Sheriff Todd Baxter approved the expenditure of taxpayer dollars to be set in the Undersheriff's Training Conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York. That's the final one. I thought Corey Brown was still the Undersheriff, but he's not. So you have a different Undersheriff whose name I cannot recall, off the top of my head. That was a big exhale from me. Sometimes the body does funny things. So you're going to refuse because you're amoral. And amoral is unconcerned with the rightness and wrongness of something. It's exactly what you are. Christopher, what are you talking about? You told a man on his tractor next to where you live that no one owns the land next to your residence and 6 police officers were there. And Christopher, you were attacked at a gym and you're sitting in the backseat of a vehicle and you're charged with a crime by a police officer. And Christopher, you exited your residence one night and 2 police officers ran at you and chased up onto your back porch and you're charged with a felony on your back porch when you're running away. I have to try to keep it together when I think about this because this is exactly what my mother was saying to me. Not those words, but those were the thoughts and sentiments which she was saying my full name. I don't go by my full name. This is what you're doing to me. When I have to explain to my mother who's 82 years old these disgusting, sickening, vile concoctions from you skinhead stooge and party switcher. Do you think an arrest just affects the person whose rights are smashed into a million little pieces? Because it affects the family members too, and in particular my mother and father. My mother is using my full name and talking to me about what's happened to me because of $67,000 Shannon Martin, $79,000 Andrew Allen, $85,000 Don Benedetto. It is the most difficult conversation of my life, and this is what you're doing to me. You fanatic, degenerate, sociopath, Todd Baxter, with your fellow fanatics, degenerates, and sociopaths. What's justice about? Sandra, Doorley, and Todd Baxter. It's about money. If I had money, I wouldn't spend one day in jail. So this is the UPS key. When I go there, despite the fact that it's arriving, you're getting it. Here it is. It's the first thing I did saying it's coming. You're getting it already. Well, 65, I think it's 65. You've received it. Also, on these dates here, December 26th, Psychopaths Incorporated is all your emails. I don't know if I'm going to be able to email this to you tonight, but it'll certainly arrive tomorrow morning when I create a new Gmail so you can't block me. So what I just read here, you also received on December 26th, December 22nd, December 18th, and November 28th, and there's other dates too. So you refuse to comply with every single one because you're amoral, which is unconcerned with the rightness and wrongs of something. You Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, you District Attorney Sandra Doorley, you Judge Alex Renzi, you Paul C. Metzler, you James Conley Jr. are unconcerned with justice.